Welcome, paranormal enthusiasts, to this week's episode of We're Creepin' It Real, here on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network, where everyone comes for their paranormal fix. Real people, real stories, in real time. So glad you could join us for some ghostly gab. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner.
Hey, everybody. Give a hello shout out to our Coast to Coast techie, Chris Mabry. He'll be working hard tonight to help us run smoothly. And I got some great news. Coast to Coast Entertainment Network is now on Amazon. That's right. If you, as a listener, have this wonderful app, you can watch all Coast to Coast's live programming directly from the app. And you can even go back and watch previous episodes. If you don't already have the app, I suggest you go and get it. But wait until after tonight's show because you don't want to miss what I have in store for you. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest. I've had the pleasure of working with him on a personal level, and I've had him as a guest on my Strange and Scary World podcast out of the Paranormal UK radio network. He's a professional entertainer who hypnotizes his audience into doing some pretty crazy things, but he has a passion for the paranormal and investigating haunted places. Please join me in welcoming Michael Mezmer to the Creepin' It Real Vault. Hi, Michael. Welcome.
Glad to be with you guys.
Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Do you recall what your first paranormal encounter was, Mike?
It was before I really got my voice back. I don't know why. Maybe Chris can deal with it.
An echo? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll ignore it and just continue. So anyway, I actually, had paranormal encounters long before I became a professional paranormal, person that went into really seriously going into it, becoming a ghost hunter. When I was young, a lot of things happened to me, and in particular, some things happened to me when I was an adult as well. Overseas, when I was on cruise ships. Also, I ran into, I could tell you a lot of stories that are fascinating, but it actually started with my grandfather. He was the one who was the first one that really experienced a lot of paranormal activity. He was a coal miner for 55 years in the mines in West Virginia. And he had really some unbelievable experiences. He would call them angels. We might call them spirits. But he was, for instance, one time he was down in the mines and he was mining and an angel appeared to him. And the angel said to him, you need to leave now. Well, you just didn't leave your mining job because at that time, you were part of the, you had the store that belonged to them. Where you live belonged to the mines. Everything belonged to the mines. So you're really just making money and paying them money back for living and everything. So you didn't leave your job because you could lose it. So anyway, he thought that seeing the angel, it was so powerful, he left. And just a few hours after that, first he came home. My grandma said to him, "Why did you come home? You're not sick." But he said, "I had to. The angel told me to." And then what happened was a couple hours later, they found out the mine had collapsed and the miners had died. And so they went back and saw all the miners laid out on the street, all of his friends and his fellow workers. And had he stayed and not listened to this angel telling him to leave, he would have been one of them.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow. So he trusted in that guardian angel or whoever it was that came down to tell me I had to leave.
Yeah, that was the only time that he had that kind of an encounter. So I grew up kind of around that kind of mentality, about the supernatural and about, there's other things I can tell you. They'll all be we'll be talking about later in my book. There'll be lots of stories, but that's kind of as I look back, that's kind of the starting point for me. Of course, I got fascinated by the supernatural long before that because I was a big fan of classic monster films and all of that. So there was a lot of that in those films, Dracula in particular with Bela Lugosi. And so I got interested in the spirit world in a young age, and then really seriously got interested in it as I got to be older. And it seems like as you get older, you're more in touch with the spirit world in some ways.
So you were around it your entire life. When was it that you actually got involved in paranormal investigating yourself?
Well, it was a few years ago, and the reason I did was because my daughter was a big fan of Zach Baggins, and she loved the Ghost Adventures, and so we would watch it on, all the time. And so as I watched it, I thought, I've had some of these kind of experiences. I mean, I've had other experiences where I've seen full body apparitions long before I did ghost hunting. And so, and it was very strange. So the thing was that I had already done it, just not done it, seriously. So when I started watching that show, I realized, it's very popular now. And I think I stayed away from it a lot initially because I thought maybe people would think I was strange, I was weird, maybe it would affect my career in some way. But then I realized with Zach Baggins' show that it's very popular, people like it. And so if I wanted to, kind of explore that part of my abilities or my, that world, I could do it without worrying about having blowback and affecting anything. In fact, I think it accents my career as a hypnotist and danger magic artist. It adds to it rather than taking away from it. So that's kind of when I jumped in on doing it more seriously. And then at that point, my wife Susie and I, we started doing it together, and we started doing the ghost hunting and getting, the equipment and all of that. And since then, my abilities and skill knowledge has grown. So I get more and more responses and more incredible things happening around me every time we go out.
I remember you actually mentioning to me once before also that it's therapeutic for you rather than turning to drugs and alcohol like so many people in the entertainment industry do. This was your drug, the paranormal investigating.
Yes. So many of my friends, after shows at night, you're very lonely when you're on the road. A lot of times my wife is not with me either. And so you're on the road, you finish a show, you're really hyped up from the show, and you have a lot of energy in you, and there's nowhere to go except a bar maybe. So a lot of my friends sadly went that direction. I've had many of them, have to fight alcoholism or even die because of the lifestyle. And what's great about paranormal is that late at night is a great time to do it. So you can
Sure.
yeah, it is. I mean, we all know the witching hour is at 3 a.m. So, you can go out at 3 a.m. and you can get incredible, activity. So for me, it was really cool because at night when I'm after a show, if I'm not tired, hey, I'll grab my meters, I'll grab my iPad, I'll grab my, parabolic mic, and I head to a graveyard or cemetery. If it's, a lot of them are open at night, they're not locked. And I'll go there, or maybe I'll go even in the hotel I'm in, and I'll find, can I go in your basement or your attic? And so I'll find ways that I can go out and have a great night until I'm tired, and then come back and sleep till showtime the next day.
Sure, they make great stories for the book, that's for sure.
Yes.
Well, you did say you had an investigation at the Old Montana Prison and Auto Museum Complex located in Deer Lodge, Montana.
Yes.
And I think I have a picture of the facility, photo credit to the museum's website. The area around Deer Lodge was settled by ranchers in the 1840s when the fur trade was dying out. An active livestock trade was founded along the Oregon Trail and led to the settlement of Deer Lodge Valley. The first territorial prison was built where Montana's worst criminals were sent for a permanent vacation. And why don't you tell us about that investigation?
Well, I've been there several times, and 2 times I was given access at night and able to freely do whatever I wanted there. I did a haunted magic show for them, and then they did a tour, a ghost investigation for people, and they let me go on my own so I could go and enjoy or find everywhere I wanted to go there without any hindrance, which was really great. The video we're gonna show shows one part of it, but I have a lot more video on it, and a lot of other things happen, but I thought we'd focus on this. But the thing is, that place is definitely super active. Zach Baggins had been there, but I think I explored it even more in depth than they did. And of course, on that show, they get so into the dramatics that aren't necessarily part of what we do as ghost hunters, and it kind of distracts from the actual real work. You don't always get something falling from the sky or yeah. But if you can listen, if you listen and you're really quiet, you can have some incredible things happen. I had one that you won't see on this video. I was in the women's part of the prison, and I asked them to tell me where the most active cell was. And so they said, well, she doesn't always like people being in there. But I went in there, I closed the cell door, sat in the total dark, pitch black. And for a while, it felt really good. I could hear, something in my head. Sometimes when we hear things, it's more kind of, it's in your ear, but in a way, it's sort of audible in your mind only, if you know what I'm saying. You can hear
Sure.
it like you hear it, but you're really not hearing it in your ear. But it seems like you are. So it was going on and on. I was talking, trying to get some response. Finally, after about 20 minutes, I heard clearly a female voice say, "Get out." And boy, I
No.
left that room, because it was like, okay, she wants me to leave now, because I sat on the bed in there. And so I guess I was in her space, and but it was really I tell you what, had this cold, it was just the hair on my back stood up. It was like, wow, this is crazy. But that was one thing that happened in there. So many other things. When I was doing the ghost show, the haunted magic show there, which I do occasionally as a pair with ghost hunting to do an event for people. And we do, some really cool, spooky things in the show. But when I was backstage, which is their backstage of the little theater where the prisoners used to be, it was just really creepy. And I saw there was this face that sort of came out of the darkness and turned, and it was really creepy. And then it was gone, like most things when we see these things, like shadow people or anything else. But a lot of things happened there. A lot of dramatic things happened when it was a working prison, and that's why there's so much activity there. I was walking down one of the main prison areas, and on the second floor, not only I, but a couple of people with me as we were doing an investigation, we saw a shadow person come out and go back in one of the cells. Clearly, it was clear as day, this shadow person. And so there's always things happening there. If anyone's into paranormal investigation, if they go there and they're able to get access, they'll find that they will have things happen that are pretty amazing.
Now, the footage that you brought with us today, what are we looking for?
Well, what this is about a guy by the name of Jerry Miles. And he was the head con there at the prison for quite a while. He had come from Alcatraz over to the prison. And so he was the head of the cons there. And he had a lover named Jerry. I think his lover was, I can't remember the name of the lover. We'll hear it on the video. But anyway, so this is about their story, what happened, because he led a revolt against the prison. And they ended up in this tower number 7, which is the most haunted tower. And they died up at the tower. And so this is a little bit about that and how I experienced that with my wife when we were doing our independent ghost hunting there at the prison.
Okay, why don't we run that footage?
Sounds good. The magic. Well, we may have a technical. Oh, there we go.
I don't know what it is, but it's freaking me out.
The people that work here, and that thing I had where there was a little guy with rat. Hi, Lynette, with the little rat feet and the little face in the cell. Well, it was for an art exhibit, right, Lynette? Mm-hmm. But what happens is she's telling me something about it. Tell me, Lynette.
So the nest behind the rat has gotten bigger. Isn't that right, Sam? Yes. So
that's crazy.
The artist we finally found, he's actually a pretty dark artist. It
was cool though.
Yeah. So there was a whole bunch of art here, and he just never came and got it. It was 3 years ago? Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's cool. It's good for the prison. It's kind of neat to be there. Yep. Well, thank you so much, Lynette.
Yeah.
It's awesome seeing you tonight.
You too.
So I'm here with Samantha now, and they're telling me more about the rat guy in that and what happened with the art exhibit. So you were saying that it would have to do with a dream of someone's or a nightmare.
Yes, it was a nightmare. It was Jerry Miles, who was the head con boss, and he got stripped of his con boss status from Warden Powell.
Oh, wow.
Well, anyway, he basically learned how to start a riot in Alcatraz, and when he came here, he basically knew how everything ran. Well, when he confided in somebody that his biggest nightmare was to become a rat in his afterlife. Well, that is what the art piece is Jerry on a rat
So
rock.
he could still be here inhabiting that.
Oh yeah, he's here. I know he's here.
And that's why. And then you were saying, Lynette was saying how there's still the nest is growing around it.
3 years now, it's gotten a lot bigger. You'll notice it every time you come in here. It'll be bigger.
That's crazy.
From the last time you were here.
He was afraid of the animal rats.
He was afraid of animal rats.
He
Lynette
was
says.
afraid of snitches.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
a rat.
Yeah.
And then the animal rat.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
Well, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Lee Smart, his lover Lee Smart, was shot, and then Jerry Miles went ahead and committed suicide in this room. A lot of the people that work here say they've had chokings on their neck, they've had scrapes on their arms, all sorts of incredible things in the top of this tower room. Death Tower, and I'm getting crazy readings in this corner. I don't know what's happening exactly, but the EVP meter's been going kind of crazy. There you go. And this oh wow, it's going up to 101. This is maybe exactly where Lee died in the Death Tower. I get a creepy feeling here on my back. My arms are very cold right now. I don't know what it is, but this keeps going off insanely. So this may very well be the spot where Lee was killed in the Death Tower. Lee, we thank you for responding to our requests. And by the way, on the video that we did in the Death Tower just before this is where they actually kicked the bodies of Jerry and Lee down the stairs. So no doubt that was a traumatic spot, and that's why we're getting those readings down those stairs. So there you have it.
Interesting. So you were in that tower by yourself?
Yeah, my wife Susie and I. Yeah, she was my video person,
Right.
and just us up there. The stairs are very precarious. They're kind of falling apart, and it's very tight stairway. They let very few people in there because it's literally dangerous. And what happened was why it's also damaged. There's one wall that they had to fill in because they had to shoot a kind of what would be like a cannonball up there to kill or stop the riot. And so a lot of trauma up there. But I had no idea that exactly where those readings were going wacko was exactly where they kicked them and rolled both Jerry and Lee down those stairs after they essentially murdered. Well, what happened was Jerry by mistake killed Lee. He didn't know, didn't want to, but with all the chaos and the guns going off, he actually shot his lover and killed Lee. So,
oh, wow.
Isn't that insane? So then he was killed by the guards when they finally stormed the tower, which is called the Death Tower. And it was really an active spot. There was things in other parts there too, but I just want to keep the video kind of short, but it was really, I could tell you, it was like electricity coming through my skin at that spot. It was just unbelievable.
Now, do you have a place where people can go and watch your videos? Because I know a lot of the times when I tell a story or have something that attaches to a story in one of my books, I allow them to go to my website to actually listen to the audio or watch the video. Can people who read your stories go to the website or of somewhere to watch the footage that you've just shared with us in the longer form?
Well, I have longer form videos on my YouTube channel, Michael.
Okay.
But again, I mostly post them during the summertime when I'm on tour, because that's when I do most of my investigations when I'm on the road. So there's new ones every now and again. But right now I think there's about 8 on there, maybe, of my more important investigations that were more active.
You even got a great orb photo from that investigation. I saw that picture, and that orb is amazing. We have it to share with the audience today if Chris can put that up.
Yeah, great. Yeah. This was the most amazing orb shot I have ever encountered. I was alone on this particular night. This was a night I was alone there.
Look at that.
It was about 3 in the morning, and I went in the old theater, which has no roof on it now. It's all decaying. It was the theater, the larger theater, where they used to do things for the prisoners there. And also there's a gallows in the middle of the theater now, just there, a hangingman's gallows. And these stairs behind me have no stairs anymore. They're all decayed. But I was in pitch dark. What I did was I took my cell phone and I put on the flash. And as you can see, I had to squint when I took the photo because it just was so bright in the eyes. But when I took that photo, there was nothing to reflect from over there. And you can see right next to the handrail and where the ball and the handrail is, there's that very definite spirit orb. And if you notice, I'm not out of focus, the photo's not out of focus, but if you notice, the orb is traveling from the ceiling down.
Yeah, that's crazy cool.
It
That's
really was.
photo.
I had no idea I had captured that. Then I came out to meet with some of the other people that were doing investigating that night, going through the photos, and they couldn't, it blew everybody's mind because, you know, we get a lot of these spirit orb photos. Some are, you know, they could be maybe dust, could be anything. This was definitely not dust. It was definitely a moving object. It was definitely an orb, and it definitely had kind of energy to it. That's why it's lit so brightly.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
I was just thrilled to have that photo. I'm just so glad I have it because I have many others, but that was just the definitive spirit orb photo for me.
Sure.
And so much fun to have.
I love it.
Go ahead.
I love it when everybody gets that one photo. You know, it's like, that was a great shot. It doesn't happen all that often, but when you do get one, it's amazing.
Well, and with the hangman's noose and hangman's gallows in there, I'm sure it's just brought a lot of energy in there that, you know, I don't know. I couldn't really find out much about the gallows. They did hang people there, so it might have been a recreation of that. But either way, even if it's a recreation, it would still draw that.
Oh, sure.
You know?
Absolutely. You know how many times investigators will go to like an old mining town where they knew the guys drank their whiskey after hours and bring whiskey and say, hey, I have a drink for you, and put it out there and pour it in the glass. And before you know it, those spirits come out ready to interact. So yeah, when you put them in that visual, it's just, it brings them back somehow.
It does. I think that it gives a connecting point. I will add, though, something that I want to say to people because we were talking about Zach Baggins and some of these other things. I've never experienced any negative spirits. And I don't know if that's because I don't go in there in an aggressive way or whatever. But, you know, I always say a prayer before I go in. And then when I leave, I always tell everybody, I'm glad we got, you know, to visit with one another or experience each other. But this is your home. And now you need to stay there. And I'm going home. But I always say a prayer for everyone that I encounter, that they can find peace. But I think maybe it's the attitude I have, and we have, my wife and I, Susie, when we go into these places, because we go in there in a positive, helpful, kind way. And I've never had all these things that I've seen, demonic kind of activity that we see on some of these TV shows that are dramatic, where people are getting scratched and hurt and pushed. I've never had that happen. And I've been in some of the most, what you might call violent areas. I mean, a prison, nothing much more violent than that. So I think that for me personally, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my grandpa's, my guardian angel. He travels with me in those places. I don't know. But I will say that I've never had any negative responses from spirits or ghosts. And that's why I enjoy it so much, because I like talking, or, you know, being able to maybe help them to understand where they're at, maybe help them to move on, whatever. But I like that. And I look at it as a positive and not a negative. And so I've never had a negative experience to this point anyway.
I'm the same as you. I agree with you 100%. It's total respect for the spirit. We're in their place and we need to understand that. So I'm with you that. I know you said you've been to the Clark Chateau in, is it Butte, Montana? Is that how you pronounce it? And I have a picture of the building, credit to the Clark Chateau website. The Clark Chateau was built by a copper magnate, William A. Clark, for his oldest son, Charles, in 1898. The Clarks lived in the home for a short time before Charles snuck away in 1903 following bribery charges with a judge in a mining suit. After the death of Catherine Clark, the house was sold off. With 26 rooms and over 4 floors, 7 fireplaces, this 13,000 square foot building is extraordinary. I would love to get in there. It's beautiful. What happened while you were there, Michael?
Well, you know, I was there sometimes when I pair up with paranormal societies. And when I'm in Montana, generally, I pair up with Elise Adams and the Bozeman Paranormal Society, which are very good. If you're ever going up there to ghost hunt, want to get all the good areas and learn where the hot spots are, they're on Facebook and you can contact them. And it really helps move ahead your investigations because you already have a roadmap to help you. But Elise is great. But anyway, we were up there and actually a long story, but I can make it shorter. But when you watch the video, I guess I'll do it backwards. I think we should watch the video first, and then I'll give some clarification of what you're seeing. Now, once again, with this video, it's not everything that happened on that ghost hunt.
Sure.
It's a specific story plot that happened, and I'll give you the relevance to it after we watch it. But pay attention to it. Pay attention to the name of the spirit that's trying to contact us. And then I'm going to give you a really interesting story that will just really lock it all together and may even give you a little chills when you hear about it.
Okay. All right, Chris, you can run that footage.
Of course, I love video, but we always know not every
group, and we're getting some interesting readings here on the piano in the Clark Chateau in Butte, Montana. So check this out. As you can see, we're getting a lot of activity at the piano, almost like it's playing a ghostly piano solo, it's hitting different keys. There's no electric near this, and yeah, it's hitting different keys on the piano, and they're different keys every time. It's in a different spot every time, so they're playing. Someone's playing the piano. They're doing an arpeggio right now, evidently. And I had a battery in my pocket. I can't even hold this battery. I was asking questions, and all of a sudden the battery got freaking hot. My whole leg was getting warm. It like was going on fire. I've never had this happen before. It was just a typical 9-volt. It wasn't touching anything, and it just got hot all of a sudden when I started asking spirit questions. Kind of crazy, right? Yeah. Never seen anything quite like that.
What are you trying to tell us?
Oh, wow.
So we're doing a spirit box session essentially here at the Clark Chateau, and having some interesting response. Evidently the name of the spirit here is Robert. Who knows why, who knows who it is, but it's Robert. But that's all there's. So again, we're on the seance table here at the Chateau, and we've now taken 4 EVP meters on the table where they do seances. Check this out.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy. But if you take them away, they go off. You put them back on the table where the seances happen and the spirit energy was, and look at this. It's insane. Really crazy readings here at the... It's sitting on your lap?
Look, I just had it sitting there. And
That's crazy. There's no electronics anywhere, and it's sitting on, something is sitting on Susie's lap. That's nuts. And the table's still going. This is crazy tonight. I have one of the EVP meters beeping like a heart on the seance table. And that's very, very unusual. I haven't seen that before, really.
No,
have you ever seen that before, Toby? Never once. Ever seen that before, Elise?
No.
It's crazy, right? It's very unusual. Because normally they either beep or they just make small, but to beep like a heartbeat, consistent. And this is where they actually did the seances here. So we still got readings going on over here as well, but that's very, very, very strange.
So that's you can take the video off now. That'll be fine. So I'm going to give you some backstory on this. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So here's the whole story. We had went there earlier in the day, my wife Susie and I, because, oh, by the way, the copper mine there is also very, very spirit active. And if you're very lucky, sometimes you can do an overnight in the mine, which is incredible. But
Overnight, they're always good.
oh yeah. So we went to Butte essentially both for the ghost hunting, but also during the day because my wife's first husband and her had a trip up there when she was young, and she wanted to re-experience some of the places she went with him. And so we went to all those places and we had a wonderful day. And so, when you do a ghost hunt, you never think about it having any personal connection, right? I mean, we don't go there and think, oh, we're going to talk to our grandfather or whatever, unless we specifically go do. So when we're ghost hunting, it's just a general ghost hunt and we're looking for evidence and we're very scientific in most respects. So what happened was that we were spending the day there. It brought back a lot of memories of her first husband, who had passed away many, many years ago. In fact, I had known him because he did sound for me at a fair when I was younger. And then, and I met her at that time, Susie, but it was many years after that, Susie and I connected after he passed away. But the thing was, we were having kind of a day in celebration for her and her first husband and having all those memories, you know? And
Sure.
so we went to the chateau, and while this was all happening, we didn't even connect it. But her first husband's name was Robert.
Oh.
And when he was young, his mom always tried to make him play piano, which he disliked.
Ah, okay.
And later on, when we were in the other room with checking, listening to the spirit box, he said his name was Bob, which is what everybody called him, was Bob. And then when we had the thing going on the table with the heartbeat, he died of a heart attack.
Hmm.
And if you recall, we sat a device in Susie's lap and it was going off because he was evidently trying to make connection with her and sitting on her lap.
Sure.
And so then we went up in the upper room that I didn't show, and someone was using dowsing rods, and they were looking for. They didn't know who Susie was because these were strangers, And so we're up there, and a lady, she was using dowsing rods, and it led her to my wife. It said, "Is your name Sue or Sue or something?" And he said, "Yeah, Susie." And so they didn't even know who she was. So he was even trying to reach her at that point as well. So it was.
Wow.
So isn't that an amazing thing? That
It's wonderful.
yeah.
See, for me, I consider that, I don't even consider that a haunting. That's a visitation for me. Like your deceased loved one is coming through to you. And he used every means that he could to get her attention. That was really wonderful. I love that.
I mean, and yet we didn't connect it on that night. In fact, we didn't connect it for about a week or two till I put the video together and we started watching and saying, "Wait a minute," and it just dawned on us what had happened. And it was like unbelievable.
But even still, even though you found out a week later, he knows that you know. He knows that he made that connection and that she knows he's okay and that he was letting her know that. And that's just wonderful. I love that. I actually, in one of my books, my second book, I actually wrote a chapter on visits from deceased loved ones because people love those stories. It's not necessarily a haunting, but it is a visitation from somebody. And a lot of those stories are very poignant in how they get your attention, what they do to let you know that they're okay and they're there. And it's just wonderful. That's a great story.
It taught me a lesson too, that when I'm on these ghost hunts, don't always think that I'm going to encounter strangers that are coming from the other side. It could be people that I know,
Absolutely. And we did an investigation one time where the people thought the activity in their home was a haunting. And the reason why they assumed that it was because they had found a random gravestone on their property.
Wow.
And it didn't look like it was where it was supposed to be. So they thought maybe that was what was causing the activity. And after we did the investigation, we ultimately found out that it was their deceased loved one, the brother of the man who lived in the home. And ironically enough, which they didn't make the connection at first, we had scheduled that investigation the week before, and they canceled for whatever reason to the following Friday. And when we went that night, not making the connection after we realized who it was that was trying to get through, that it was the anniversary of his death.
Wow.
So they were started to make all the connections. Oh my gosh, why didn't I realize that this was him? So, yep. And that usually happens, birthdays or something significant like that. And I really feel like it was meant for that to be canceled and rescheduled to the date of his anniversary of his death,
Yeah. Yes. And, in this situation, it was such a happy time when my wife had that trip with her husband up there through those areas. She was pregnant with her first daughter at the time, but they were having wonderful times. They were camping out, doing things. So it was a really emotionally positive and happy time for them. And I think by us conjuring him up in a sense, by talking about those experiences and visiting those places she had gone with him, and then when we ended up at the end of the evening there, he probably found an opportunity to try and reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That was great.
Sure.
And you say you did an investigation in Bannock, Montana. What's so special about Bannock?
Oh, well, I like Bannock for a lot of reasons. This was another one I did with the Elise and the Bozeman Paranormal group. We also had another member of the group that I hadn't met till then that was along, Joshua. And he was interesting because he's deaf, but he uses other senses, and he's able to really sense things that you and I could not. He can feel energy on the boards that he walks on in these old mining towns and things. He can feel spots through his body, through his feet, through walking. He can sense things sort of in a way that we in a different area than we can, because since he can't hear, all of his other senses are so finely tuned. So I found it fascinating working with Joshua and Elise that day, and another member as well that was with us. So that was one part of it that made it interesting to me, because he led me to certain areas that were really places I might have not encountered or not have found without his super senses.
Yeah.
And also, it's an old mining town, which we know old mining towns, they have everything from, don't take it the wrong way, but they had whorehouses, they had violence, they had shootings, they had robberies, they had a lot of violence and activities. Plus, they had families living there trying to survive the cold winters. And there was a Native American tribe, that's what's named after the Bannocks. And so, very fascinating place to visit. Just to visit, even if you don't want to ghost hunt, because it's still intact as it was in those days. They even have the gallows up on the hill up above. In fact, I didn't include this one segment, but when you're in the prison or the jailhouse, it's down the town. The gallows are up on the hill. But when you're in the jailhouse, you can see the gallows about a half mile off from there. So the prisoners that were in there could see their own demise in front of them and what they were going to be encountering. So kind of horrific that way too.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool place, but again, super active. And again, there was a lot of things that happened there, but I have a few key things that are going to be on the video. Unlike the other videos, it's not a direct linear narrative, but we'll be visiting the church that was there. And then we'll be visiting, which I always find is a lot of activity in churches, a lot of spiritual activity. And because I guess in life, of course, a lot of spiritual activity there in a different way. And then we'll be visiting the schoolhouse briefly. And I was using some dowsing rods there. And Elise and I had an amazing situation with that. Then we're going to be going to the hotel where a little girl out behind there in the river had drowned. And she haunts that. And I had a spirit encounter using a flashlight, which is always one of my favorite tools. And then we will go from there to the saloon. And what happened? Well, I'll tell you more about the saloon afterwards. You'll see what happens. It's the most amazing spirit activity I've ever encountered in the saloon at the end of this. So it freezes up. We'll have to re-thread it and show it again, because this was the most dramatic piece of spirit activity I've ever captured on camera.
Okay, Chris, run that for us.
The minister here. Is there a clergy member here? Can you say hello? Just say hello. Just say hello. What happened then? Oh, wow, look at that. There is nothing around there. That's incredible. So something's in that seat, because that doesn't go off unless it feels motion detection. Wow. Look at that. That's crazy. So while we were working the Sono X, Joshua's sensitive ball down here went off. It's right here in one of the seats, and the light went off on it. So there you go. While we were talking to Sono X asking questions, a parishioner must have sat in that seat. So we're in the schoolroom here now, and we've had some energy of a ghost child somewhere in the room. We're using our dowsing rods, Lisa and I. We're going to see if we kind of match up. So Susie's going to keep the camera on both of us back and forth, and we'll see what happens. Same spot. Look at that. Same spot. It's you too, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's right here.
It's going to be very possibly here.
That's crazy. Something's happening right here in this spot. We've done it several times and still doing it, even both of us. So we were just hearing a ghost story from Elise that happened to her earlier in her ghost hunting career. There's Joshua and Susie and Cindy of our Bozeman Paranormal group that we're guesting with today. And I set up my flashlight, which you've seen in another demonstration on the Donkey Lady Bridge. It was shut off, but during the ghost stories we were telling, it actually came on. And you can see it's sort of not quite on all the way now. There it goes again.
Come on, you can turn it off.
So if you can turn it off, turn it off. If you can turn it off, turn it off.
You can do it.
Turn it off. Can you turn it off?
We believe in you.
Turn it off. But it was crazy. It came on during the ghost stories. And as you can see, it's still flickering. It's not quite full. But it was totally off, and then it came on as the ghost stories are being told. So this is where the little girl Dorothy lives, and we're thinking she's trying to turn off the camera. The flashlight. It was varying. It was going a little off, a little on. Now she's being stubborn again and keeping it on because we're on camera. But we were telling her she could just stop making the ectoplasmic connection there, and then it would go off, and we'd like to see her shut it off.
Don't worry. The thing's over here, not over there.
So Dorothy's some little girls ran by, and it went off. Almost. It went very dark, very dark. So some little girls went by, and when they went by, the flashlight got very bright. Oh, there it goes again. Yes. Amazing. So there is someone here communicating with us. We don't know what they're saying. I'm here in the saloon just now. He's very sensitive because his hearing doesn't work, so he's using his body, his mind, and he's very sensitive, and he felt this come up on him. That's interesting. Cool, Joshua. Thank you. We have multiple devices, so you have a lot of opportunity to let us know if you're here.
He's asking it.
Oh!
Oh.
This is crazy. We're with Bozeman Paranormal, and we were asking if someone was here, and that door, there is wind going, but not enough because that's a heavy door. It totally blew open, like really hard. How insane. This door, because I closed it myself, was literally totally closed. You have to push a little button to open it. And yet, just a moment ago, when we were trying to talk and communicate, it literally flung open like that. Not slow, not slow. And remember, it was in totally closed position where there's a little lock thing, but it just went violently like that. That's crazy.
He's asking it.
Oh!
He's asking.
That was great. Love it. Great. Yeah, that was great.
It's the most dramatic piece of film I've ever captured of activity. I mean, it's just so dramatic. And you know what's so amazing about this? I had never ghost hunted during the day before. And, Elise, who's with Bozeman Paranormal, has done a lot of that. She said, oh, yeah, you're going to get a lot of activity. It doesn't have to be at the witching hour. It doesn't have to be in the middle of the night. It can be during the day. It'll happen anytime. And so
you said even with lots of people around too, you can actually have stuff happen. Because I heard other voices and got people milling around, and you still were having stuff happen.
Yeah. In that saloon, we were actually just us, and they were doing investigating in various sections. But in other rooms, we had other people. Yeah. Like in the schoolroom, There was kids and walking through the areas and talking. And yet we connected there, and it was amazing. The flashlight thing, for instance, there was kids that walked by, and when the kids walked by, like I mentioned in the video, it kind of broke up a little, but when they walked by, then the flashlight would respond to them walking by. They didn't know what we were doing, but because it was a little girl, I think she was attracted to those little girls walking by the flashlight.
Sure. And I love using just a traditional flashlight. It's and dowsing rods. They're just the simplest things, but they are just so productive in producing communication and stuff
Oh,
on camera.
I did an investigation on the Donkey Lady Bridge, which I mentioned on there, and yeah, it was a great tool there to communicate with the Donkey Lady. We don't know her name, so I don't hate to be disrespectful because they call her the Donkey Lady, which I think is a horrible name. I won't go into the story of that right now, but in any case, had great response there with it as well. So everywhere I use it, it works really well. It's simple, but it works well. For those that don't understand how to do that, you simply have an old style flashlight where it connects to the batteries here. So when you screw it in, you unscrew it slightly till it's off and then just barely touching. And then the ectoplasm, the spirits, make that extra connection to light it up and illuminate it. Now, I want to tell you about that saloon situation. The sheriff in Bannock at the time was a very evil man. And what he would do is he had a gang that would meet there in the saloon and they'd make plans because when the miners would get a big amount of money, when they'd be leaving town in the stagecoach, actually the sheriff and his men would rob it and steal their money. And then he would also be the one that was doing the law enforcement in the town. Well, they finally found out about him. He ended up being in that jail that I talked about and hung up on the hill, but along with his compatriots. But that saloon was their meeting place. So we were in there, we were trying to reach him and we were calling out to him. And so that's why we had all of that, all the different investigative tools there, trying to find something. And it just happened we had an extra static camera going when that happened with the door. And I guess he was angry, or maybe he just wanted to leave, or maybe he was just coming in by our request. We'll never know. But that was a dramatic piece of
Yeah, great catch for sure. Absolutely.
Now, in the I will say, if you're not familiar with those cat toys like you saw on the seat, they're amazing because they're motion driven. So when you set it there, once it settles, and the doors are closed, there's no breeze going on in there. So when I was calling out to the minister or wife, all of a sudden Joshua saw it light up and he pointed to it. I ran back there and it was like responding. My Sono X on my pad wasn't responding, but that responded when I was calling out to them from the pulpit. And so then we went out there and you saw what happened. It was on. It was crazy. And then it just stopped dead, never to light up again. So that's a great tool for ghost hunting.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get myself one of those. Would you say there are skills or maybe a certain mindset, especially? I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you heard me or not, but I asked did you hear what I asked?
No, it cut out, but I think you were asking if there's special skill set that you need to be a ghost hunter, or I can't hear you.
Would you say there are skills or maybe a certain mindset especially valuable? Would you say that there are skills or maybe a certain mindset that's especially valuable in?
I think it's if you're open to things as far as, I happen to be very logical in my thinking. But I do have a great imagination that things can be more than what we just see in our own front door, but I am very much a Mr. Spock. I have a very logical outlook on it. So when I'm out there, it's not that I totally believe in anything unless I see it proven to me. And as we see, I have seen it proven on several occasions. So I guess I have softened even more and I'm more open. And the more open I become, the more incredible things happen around me during these investigations. So I guess it's like anything in life, it's a road, a journey. And the more you take that journey, the more you experience more interesting things along the way. And like I say, we use a lot of tools. Okay, for instance, the dowsing rods, they're a bit more magical in a way, if you want to say that. But then things like the flashlight and the electronics and all that, they're just what they are. They're scientific instruments in a sense. So, and the parabolic mic I find very helpful. Now when I listen to my spirit box, I like to use the parabolic mic at the same time on my ears so I can hear even more specific sounds when I'm on site rather than re-looking at it later. So I think everyone can do it. Everybody can have fun with it. those that are more open to believing that there is something beyond life will have maybe more connection to begin with. But I think as they go along scientifically, they'll eventually realize there are things happening. As they do, it'll open up more and more, and they'll gain more and more experience and get more and more incredible reactions.
Are you skeptical of some of the other groups out there and the proof that they unearth?
You know, that's the thing about like Zach Baggins and some of the TV shows. Again, our work is very sensitive. It's very personal. It's very emotional. But I think that sadly, because of TV ratings, when you have to get an hour show every week to have incredible things like that door that you just saw happen with me, but have it on every show every week all the time, I don't think that's possible, to be honest. I think that a lot of that is staged for the camera, but that's okay. It's a great show, and it inspired my daughter and me, so it's fine. But in essence, you and I both know ghost hunting is very meticulous work, and to put out an hour show every week that has amazing footage, probably not. Probably not.
I agree. It's entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, I've done hundreds of hours of ghost hunting, and that door was never happened before. It was the most.
No, you could tell it was random. I mean, just from watching it, you didn't expect it. Even by your reaction, you were just blown away. So, and that's the kind of stuff I like to see, the legitimate catches like that. They're amazing. That's why I do this show, to bring those particular instances to the viewers so they can see. You could be at an investigation for hours and hours and hours and have nothing happen. But when you have those catches, it's amazing.
Well, you can go to the same location, like you had a great experience one time, and you can go in for 2 or 3 times, never have that kind of situation happen again.
Exactly.
The spirits just aren't there at that moment, or wanting to respond, or in tune with you, or lined up with what you're doing. And so even though it's a very active place, you may have one incredible time there and then maybe never again. It's interesting that way.
Do you have a dream haunted spot that you would love to get a chance to go to, that you've thought about? Oh, I've got to go there, kind of thing.
I would really love, but they will not let you do it on your own. I'd really love to do the Queen Mary in LA. I always wanted to do that. A few years back, unfortunately, during COVID, I was going to be the president of the American Council of Hypnotist Examiners. We were going to have our convention there, and I was going to attempt to pull some strings to be able to do that. But then COVID happened. They closed down Queen Mary. It remains closed down at the moment. But I have always, because I've had incredible spirit happenings on the cruise ships I've worked on, and that'll all be in the book as well. But and that was before I was a professional or semi-professional ghost hunter. But so ships always have incredible spirit activity, but the Queen in particular does, because it was through World War II, and a lot of things happened there. And so that would be my dream ghost hunt, would be the Queen Mary.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be a good one for sure.
Yeah.
Out of the ones that you've already done, is there one that's your personal favorite?
Well, all of them have been spectacular. I mean, I've enjoyed every location and learning new techniques to use at every location. Sometimes you have to be sort of on the spot. Sometimes all the things we have don't work, so you try other things, that just come to your mind. And so using whatever, your camera, whatever you have at hand, and try to capture something. So I enjoy every one of them. The old Montana prison for me has a certain specialness, I guess, because it was one of my earliest that I started doing my ghost hunting in proper form. But Bannock was certainly amazing. If I could ever go back there, especially at night, I would love to do that again.
Do you have any scheduled investigations coming up in the near future?
Actually, not scheduled right now, but I'm going to be going on summer tour with my hypnosis and my danger magic shows soon. And I understand that the grounds at the Wyoming State Fair, the buildings there, because they've been there 100 years, there are a lot of spirit activity I learned from the people that work there. So I'm hoping to go in there a couple days before the fair and spend many hours, hopefully at night, in the middle of the night, doing some ghost hunting there. I'm always open to new experiences. I'm going to be back in South Dakota this summer, and I always like doing Deadwood. There are some amazing things I've had happen at Deadwood, and a lot of locations there that I haven't been able to visit as yet. So I hope to spend some time in Deadwood this summer as well, and see what happens there. So yeah, some cool things happening. I'll be posting them as I do them, but again, they'll happen mostly during my summer tour, mostly in August and September.
Why don't you go ahead and let the listening audience in on where they can go to find more about you and what you are going to be doing and your book? I would love for you to share that with the listeners.
Great. Yeah. Well, of course, you can go to my YouTube channel to see the current videos that are available. They're way extended version of what you just saw. And then also my Facebook page, Michael.Mezmer, and you can go there. And I always post everything I'm doing and also everything I'm posting on YouTube. So whatever is on there, you'll see. Most of it, of course, is doing my shows and my entertainment. But there's always, anytime I do anything paranormal, it's going to be posted there. And then, of course, I have my upcoming book, which won't be out actually till next year. It's Ghost Transfer, A Hypnotist Among the Spirits from Fayetteville Mafia Press. But it's available right now for pre-order. And it's going to be great. It's a long, long book. I have really interesting stories, including even one that happened in Hollywood when I was doing a ghost hunt to help out a drummer in a very famous band, which I can't mention their name. But the story's in there, and it's really fascinating what happened in his sound room. And so a lot of things in there that will really excite your imagination and open your mind to some incredible things that happened with me.
Great cover you have there. It really is a good job.
Thank you. Yeah. Fayetteville Mafia Press. You can find them online, and you can find my my book ready to pre-order there, so you'll have it the minute it hits the presses.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here tonight. This was really great. I loved it. And I hope you'll come back again sometime after you've done more investigations to share with the listeners and talk about it with me.
I would love to, and we will definitely do that. And I thank you so much, Eleanor, for having me as your guest. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you, and you have a wonderful week.
Thank you so much. And Chris, thank you. Techie Chris, we couldn't do the show without you. If you liked listening to this week's episode and you're into all things paranormal, check out my other show, Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World podcast, out of the Paranormal UK Radio Network, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. If you could just put up that picture, there we go. And if any of you are interested in reading any of my books, he's going to put a picture of those up too. You can find the links to them on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com. I write about the history of the town and location, add the paranormal story to the mix, and finish it all off with photos and evidence. And if you're looking for some protection from ghostly attachments, the Lady Ghostbuster unisex bracelet is the perfect thing. This gorgeous protective gemstone bracelet with sterling silver ghost charm is the perfect fix. Offered in a collaboration with Zen Jewels by Zen Jen, you can find the link for this gorgeous piece at my website, authoreleanorwagner.com, under the Merchandise tab. Don't go into a haunted building unprotected. Arm yourself with the Lady Ghostbuster bracelet by Zen Jewels. Viewers, tune in on Thursday, July 21st, when paranormal investigator Scott Sukal comes to share some ghostly gab with me at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, keep on creeping it real.
I hope you've enjoyed this little journey down my own personal nightmare alley. If you're one of those people who experiences the paranormal and has stories of your own you've been filing away over the years, I want to hear about them. And if you're a part of a paranormal investigative team, even better. I'd love to have you on my show. Got a questionable photo? Send it in. Would love to have an open discussion here amongst the professionals. Reach out to me at authoreleanorwagner@gmail.com. Enjoy our soundtrack music, Headless Horseman by Alexander Nakarada, promoted by freestockmusic.com. And remember, no ghost story is better than a real-life ghost story. Until we meet again, make sure you're creeping it real.